time for the Ron and Brian podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
And here we are yet again. It's Sunday night. It is 8 o'clock, and it is time for episode 311 of the Ron and Brian podcast. 311, I know, Brian, one of your favorite bands going way back. Whoa, Amber is the energy. Sorry. That's just, we were talking about this before the show. That's just one of the bands that I've just never understood people listening to and enjoying.
I always attributed it as a drug thing. I always felt that it was, it was the younger generation's version of the jam bands, the Fish, right, whatnot, where it was like, you had the Grateful Dead here, then the next generation was the Fish, and there were other bands that kind of were around. The Fish? It wasn't the Fish. Oh yeah,
I think it's just Fish. I think it's just Fish.
Then I think it was the younger generation, like kind of like our age, where suddenly it became. You had what were some of the bands that were? There was Sublime. Sublime, I think, really kind of like started that whole like Then there was 311. Government Mule came in there.
Who did that song Santa Monica Boulevard? Jesus, I can't remember the name of the group, but that was another one.
That wasn't that Mudvayne?
I don't know. I'm sure it'll come to it. So Janelle's saying right off the bat, Brian, you need to use a stronger sunscreen. Were you getting a little sun this weekend, my friend?
Absolutely. I, Ron, one of the joys of summer is, to kind of set aside one of the 2 days that you have to, your weekend, and set one of those aside to go outside, exit your domicile and put on, some swimming trunks, walk a couple minutes, in your case, 20 seconds, and jump in your pool. I mean, that is what summer is for. Summer is for hanging out by the pool. Earlier today, the lady and I sat there, looked at our calendars. We said, what do we have to do today? We kind of paused for a moment, shrugged, and was just like, pool day. So, this time I did put some sunscreen on. You couldn't tell by the looks of it, but, went down there. It was such a relaxing morning. Fortunately, we went down around 10 o'clock in the morning. The cloud cover was pretty strong for about 3 hours. Then suddenly the clouds kind of broke and the sun, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are this year, at least here in the Northeast, from my ivory tower. One of the observations I've already made is that it feels like an August sun already, and it's only July. This is, I don't recall July suns being this strong. But if you're
saying the sun has been very intense lately.
It is brutal. I always knew that at some point the sun would expand and engulf and heat up all the planets, boil the water, and then engulf, all the smaller planets before it collapses into its own weight, which will end life as we know it. However, it was just once the sun really broke out, that was when we said, all right, it's time to go back in to our ivory tower and enjoy some air conditioning, shower. There's nothing like getting, some suntan in, then you go inside, you shower, you put on some clean clothes, you just kind of sit on the couch, feet up, and you feel that warmth radiating out of you. And you know what I'm talking about, right, Ron?
Yeah. So, weekends, are GTL, gym, tan, laundry, and then just a lot of pool time. I don't even use sunscreen, but we have more umbrellas in our backyard now than I think would have been humanly possible. Even one on the sun shelf, Brian. We got a umbrella holder in the sun shelf, which if you ever get your own palatial estate separate from the ivory tower that you live in right now, and you get an in-ground pool with a sun shelf, make sure you get the in-ground pool with the umbrella holder.
So what do? They just drill a hole inside, cement it closed, and that's where the pool,
umbrella... There's a little cap you can put on it when you're not putting the umbrella there. But yeah, the umbrella sits on the sun shelf, and next time you're down, you'll be able to sit by my pool.
Oh, that would be very nice. I just need one thing, and that would be an invitation.
All right. Well, one of these days. In the meantime, let's have a drink.
Drink of the week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud.
Drink of the week.
Plancha.
Pause.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
Ryan, what you drinking tonight?
I put out a call earlier this week to our dear friends over at Goose Island Brewing Company, Beer Company, Goose Island Beer Company. You know, if I'm going to be accepting free beer, I really should get to know the name of these breweries. Anywho, to make a long story short, what do we got here? Goose Island Beer Company's Sophie. It's a Belgium style saison. What's the pronunciation here? Saison,
I would go with.
Saison with orange peel. That's right. It's a Belgium style Saison with orange peel. You're going to say, Brian, what does it look like? Well, bitch, this is what it looks like. Are you feeling bougie? Embrace your self-care era with this vibrant Belgium style ale. Want to get away this weekend? Maybe hit up that happy hour after work? We've got you. Well, Goose Island does. Take these plans out of the group chat. Make this beer a reality. This is always the life of the party. And this isn't even a description of the fucking beer. Thanks, Goose Island. 6.5 ABV. Beer Advocate scores this a 91 out of 100. You know what that is? Outstanding. Let's see if I agree with their assessment.
All right, have a sip. Let me know how it is.
Ooh, this is good. There's a
Tasty.
little orange peel. Yeah. It's not an IPA. It doesn't have that bitter hoppiness at the end. It is an ale, so it does have a lot more flavor than a lager, but you've got that real citrus punch in there, and I am digging it. I am digging this beer, Ron. Ooh, that is once again, for those who are keeping score at home, this is from Goose Island Beer, Sophie, Sofie. Ron.
Yes.
Ron.
Yes, my friend.
What are you drinking?
So this week I picked up a mixed pack of Yards, their new Philly Standard beer, which they've come out with 3 new flavors of. The one I am trying tonight is their Philly Standard Punch. This is a ale with pineapple, orange, lemon, blueberry, blackberry, and raspberry. There is a lot of fruit in there. It is one of their tailgate beer series, part of their Schwarbecue pack. And it's got 4.5% alcohol from the 215 Yards and this is the Philly Standard Punch. Take a look at that.
Ooh.
I previously tried the Philly Standard Lime, decent. Philly Standard Orange, very good. This one is the Philly Standard Punch.
Interesting. This beer is fruitier than you back in college on a Friday night.
Don't like it.
Oh,
too much. It's too much fruit. There's too much going on. Too much going on. Like you used to say to me on Sundays in college, there's too much going on in my mouth.
Never said that. Joe says that looks like rabbit pee.
Like it's tart, but not in a good way. So Like I said, I would recommend the Philly Standard Orange, Philly Standard Lime, decent. This one, not a fan. I will drink it because we always do finish our drinks of the week, whether we like them or not. But I won't be
Not
enjoying
this
it.
one. All
Nope.
right, this will be question. Did you buy one of them, or do you have a 6-pack or 5
So
now in
this
the beer
was
fridge?
This was since it was 3 flavors, this was a 15 pack. So I've got 4 more of these in the beer fridge as we speak.
How do you do a
'Cause
15-pack?
Well, you get 3 beers and you get 5 of each.
I've only seen like a 12-pack. I've seen 16
Really?
packs. I've never seen a 15-pack. That's weird.
Got to open your horizons. I got a 15 pack of Founders All Day IPA the other day. You got to wander to like a regular grocery store. I understand the high end linen tablecloth service grocery stores that you go to may not have what some of the common folks drink. So you may just need to get out in public.
Well, I've had conversations with the fine folks over at Whole Foods who have explained to me that they are going to be expanding their beer selection. And earlier this week, I swung by Dean and DeLuca to see if they were starting their own beer aisle. And they said, for you, we're going to do it. And I was like, for me.
So you can go to Dean and DeLuca, get a little charcuterie, and then maybe a fancy little Belgian ale to have on the side of it.
There is nothing as satisfying as walking out of Dean and DeLuca with that white grocery bag. It feels like paper, but it just says class. Knowing you just dropped $300 for an afternoon's worth of food for you and your friends.
Like you just paid $200 an ounce for whatever food items are in that bag. But people know you've got that kind of FU money.
Listen, Ron, have you ever spent $83 a pound for a Manchego cheese?
I haven't, and clearly I haven't lived.
That's how I live. That's how I roll.
All right. Speaking of rolling, let's roll on with Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Quick comment from Billy. Of course, it's a white grocery bag for hashtag Whitey McIvory Tower, which has been the trending hashtag on X for weeks now. So
listen,
kudos
people are loving it. People are loving it. Just like the Hak Twa girl, I will be. I've got hashtag Whitey McIvory Tower merchandise. It's in the hopper. We will be launching a website in the next couple of weeks.
All right, sounds good. More importantly, Brian, what's your beef this week?
Ooh, this one's a petty beef. This one's
I love
petty beef. Oh no! Right. I think you might agree with me on this one. It is the proliferation of street vendors in Manhattan. They have, when I was, in my 20s, 30s, whatnot. Really, the only street vendors were, hot dog vendors, other food trucks, things like that. That was really the only people that were taking up space. You occasionally you'd have some type of religious group standing there handing out pamphlets, flyers, leaflets, if you would. But for the most part, the sidewalk was for pedestrians. Over the past few years in Manhattan, predominantly post-pandemic, not really sure exactly what the reason is. I know there's a strong sentiment amongst New Yorkers pointing towards the migrants who have arrived in New York City not being given working papers or an ability to work legally, so they are taking these positions off the books and whatnot. But it is so common now, if you're trying to walk down a main New York City thoroughfare, that half of the sidewalk has been taken up by somebody with a stand, a booth of some type where they are hawking some type of crap, whether it is bad posters. If you're in the financial district, it's black and white photos of Wall Street and 9/11 memorabilia. I love New York hats and T-shirts and Eiffel Towers and not Eiffel Towers.
That's something different completely.
Statue of Liberty. No, that's up in Times Square where they're doing the Eiffel Towers. But it is the fact that as a pedestrian in New York City, we have lost so much real estate over the past few years. The outdoor dining sheds are still there. The outdoor tables are taking up quite a bit. But if you are looking to walk through Manhattan in any a significant area, you are going to be realize that we have lost space. We have lost walking space. So vendors can sell stuff tax free, and in a way that's not putting money back into the community. That is a beef of mine.
Okay,
whether you like it or not.
Well, I mean, add that to all of the continuous construction that are going on in the buildings in your area, scaffolding and everything else, and then you get the rest of the sidewalks taken away by vendors.
Ron, construction is a vital industry for the lifeblood of New York City. If you think about it, every construction, job site, you're thinking of it in terms of, you're building, all this land is going for wealthy people in their condominiums, but you're forgetting about the hard-working, blue-collar, individuals who are earning a paycheck for months or years on end. Carpenters, laborers, painters, plumbers, electricians, masons, all sitting there earning their paycheck, putting that money back into the community with rent, groceries, entertainment. That is what builds a local economy. So do not go on to any tirade about the construction in New York City.
All right.
We love it.
My apologies. I clearly hit a nerve, so my apologies.
Love construction. What's up, Ron?
Yeah,
what's bothering you this week?
So this week, Brian, it's the weather. It is this heat wave that has been going on. The sun that you already spoke of, just being ridiculously warm. So warm that it is barely a respite to hop into my pool in the backyard. Temperature today of the water got up to 88 degrees, Brian. I mean, I might as well just take a bath in there when it's that warm. So thanks to the right wing for ignoring climate change, global warming, whatever you want to call it. But just brutal, just absolutely brutal. I'm breaking into a sweat now. I turn off the air conditioning in the recording studio so it doesn't bleed through on the microphone. And it's already getting hot, Brian. It is already getting hot. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I need to do a podcast from the pool one of these weeks.
Oh, and maybe I do one for mine.
I mean, I've got, I did hook up some Wi-Fi out there, so I would have a signal. So we'll see.
Oh, I love this idea. We both do a show in our pools.
There you go. Just a thought, just kicking it around. Kick that around inside that sweet little noggin.
I'm sorry. This could be the first all pool podcast that's ever done.
That'd be something. That would get us up there with the Rogans, the Dax Shepherds, the Adam Carollas, the Charlie Kirks, those type people.
You can keep going. I don't think you're done there.
I'm done.
This has gotta stop. I can't find where's the "This Has Gotta Stop" music. It's under video clips.
There. Yeah, it's under.
Oh,
video.
Yeah, you're right. Great. This has gotta stop.
This has gotta stop.
There you go. My God, Brian. Let's get to our stories of the week, Brian, because I love your story of the week. I love my story of the week, but these are the stories that we just grab, we set aside, and we say we've got to get to this one. So, Brian, if you would be so kind as to share your story of the week with us.
Okay. Do you have a photo, Matt? I know you are paying attention. You are not smoking crack cocaine right now, Matt. Do you have a photo of Nate Hill that you can put up here?
Oh, he's got it. All right.
Excellent. Good. Nate Hill right here. Nate recently made the news globally as he was left with chemical burns following an allergic reaction to hair removal cream after he had attempted to remove the pubic hair on his body to spice up his love life. That's correct. He applied this hair removal cream to his genitals. And unfortunately, within a minute, he realized things were going horribly wrong as he was struck by this burning sensation. He said that the pain was worse than when he was burnt with hydraulic fuel while moving things in an RAF base. That's right. If you couldn't tell from the photo, Nate Hill is British. From Kirkby, Liverpool. Washed it off immediately, but was left with a blistered, sore groin for weeks afterwards. Ironically, despite trying to improve his sex life, poor Nate here was then put onto a total sex ban by his doctors. And there's a photo. I don't know if you want to put the photo.
Let me see if Matt pulled that photo. Hold 1 second.
I don't necessarily recommend it.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think we should put that up there.
If the New York Post can put that photo up, if the New York Post publishes the photo, why can't we?
It looks painful. It definitely
painful. Yes. So listen, kids, if you are going to worry about your abundance of pubic hair and in fear that it's going to dampen your love life, let me tell you something. Applying hair removal cream is not the way to do it. We all know the right way to do it. Manscaped. Just go out there and buy Manscaped. Didn't we have them as one of our sponsors for a short period of time? I think they deactivated the promo code Ron's Balls. But it was nice that we were able to offer that to our listeners for a while there. Yeah. So Nate Hill, I toast to you and your chemically scarred genitals, and hope that you're feeling better.
I mean, God willing, he heals up from it.
Ron, what was the worst pubic hair trimming incident you ever had?
I don't know that I've knock on wood, I've been fairly successful in that area, so I haven't had any real issues. How about yourself?
I know one time I cut the shaft of my penis with a razor while I was trying to shave some hair down there. And the feeling when I applied soap afterwards to wash my penis as the soap entered the cut, that was very painful because there's not much you can do. Yeah, there is not much you can do with that kind of pain. That was the worst I've had. Ever since then, it is what?
There's nothing more breathtaking than splashing some Aqua Velva onto a freshly shorn scrotum. I mean, that really wakes up in the morning.
You want to get inside between the sack and the thigh because that's really where you want to get that Aqua Velva in. You want to just kind of cup the scrot, get the Aqua Velva in, boom, just cup it this way, get it nice. The ladies love the Aqua Vel. Always have. Yep. Ron, what's your story of the week?
So my story of the week, Brian, do you know the name Derek Blasberg?
Derek, what last name again?
Blasberg, Blasberg.
I'm going to be honest with you. When I was in college, there were a lot of Dereks that I met. Rarely did the conversation get so far as to last names. It was a different time. It was much more informal back then. It's possible I know him, but I can't say for sure.
Well, he is described as one of showbiz's most well-connected men. But what caught me was the headline that said, "Meet Derek Blasberg, Hollywood socialite accused of fleeing Gwyneth Paltrow's Hampton home after catastrophic diarrhea, who counts Jeff Bezos and Demi Moore as pals. So here is a picture of Derek from Gwyneth's Instagram. So apparently he became the talk of Hollywood after he was accused of being the mystery guest who lost control of his bowels in a bed at Gwyneth Paltrow's Hamptons home.
Okay.
Apparently he blamed it on Ozempic, but an insider said, basically, no, he just allegedly shit the bed.
Literally shit the bed.
Yes.
I have a question. I mean,
Yeah.
what? Okay, I understand that there are certain drugs you can take that cause you to be constipated to the point where you eat something and suddenly everything just floods right out. But I can't remember the last time I have defecated uncontrollably. There have been times where the turtle's been sticking his head out, but I knew
Right.
I was a couple minutes away from the toilet, and as soon as I got off the subway, I was fine. But I can't remember getting in bed and then waking up and having shit all over myself.
I mean, I have heard a side effect of some of these weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro and the such is uncontrollable diarrhea. But
Really?
I mean, it's one thing to have diarrhea in Gwyneth Paltrow's bread, but I'm not quite sure why the Daily Mail needed to point out, yeah, this guy who shit in Gwyneth Paltrow's bed, he's also pals with Jeff Bezos and Demi Moore. Demi's just sitting at home probably all right, I finally got back in the spotlight a little bit with the Bratz documentary. Oh, I'm popping up in my Google alerts again. What's today's story? Oh my God, my friend shit in Gwyneth's bed. But this whole article
also, how does the story even get out there? Okay, obviously, I'm assuming Gwyneth isn't going around changing the linens in her Hamptons home. I am imagining that she's got somebody, a staff member to do it. Are they calling the Daily Mail to say, "Hey, I've got some information if you feel like paying for it"?
It's allegedly an insider, so odds are
it's Gwyneth Paltrow.
No truth to the story whatsoever. The insider said, "Quote: Gwyneth told Oprah, Jerry and Jessica Seinfeld, and Larry David." There's it's as many names as you can drop is possible that they're throwing in this story. Oh, this guy also knows, apart from Demi Moore, he knows Sienna Miller and Carly Kloss and Kendall Jenner and Bella Hadid. I feel like this is more clickbait than anything else. I mean, again,
does he know any men? Because it seemed like you only named women.
Let's see here. Might know Jake Gyllenhaal and Andy Cohen. Well, and Jeff Bezos. I mean, Jeff was right in the title there.
Who doesn't know Andy?
Oh,
anymore?
This all makes sense now. He's in a photo with Hillary Clinton. Where was Hillary when he shit the bed?
The Clinton death toll rises by one. He looked like the guy from The Bear, by the way.
A little bit. The brother, right? The taller one.
No, he looked like both of. He looked like the other. I was going to say he looks like the other guy, but now that you mention it, he looks like the brother, cousin. Actually, have you watched The Bear? Have you made it through any of it yet?
I've watched a couple episodes of the first season. I can't. I don't know. I can't get into it. Sorry.
Was it because you were upset that they weren't sous videing anything? How are you going to cook that without putting it inside of a vacuum sealed plastic bag and then boiling it for 4 hours at 128 degrees?
But that does beg the question, Brian. What are you watching?
Oh, I watched the new the Netflix movie. Well, first off, we'll get to the Beverly Hills Cop. I finished season 1 of Your Honor.
Okay.
And I'm now about halfway through with season 2. I think there's only 2 seasons.
Only the 2 seasons, yes.
Really enjoyed season 1. It wasn't I wouldn't necessarily say it was a very fast-paced show.
No.
But it really did do a convincing job telling a story. Season 2, you really set it up as this is going to be absolutely terrible. I don't think it's that bad.
Okay.
But I do believe that there's some gigantic story holes that either I completely missed, but I don't believe I did. Such as and spoiler alert, I guess is the term I should be using right now. If you care about watching Your Honor, turn off the audio until I go like this. So, okay, spoiler time. So so the son dies at the end of the first one. Then somehow in the first episode of the second one, the judge is in jail already, but elsewhere it seems as if no time has transpired.
Right. Like he's grown like a Unabomber
He's grown a
beard.
beard. He's lost an incredible amount of weight. But with other characters, it's like 2 days after the shooting of the son. Then the daughter already has a baby. So at least 9 months have passed. The mob's daughter has the baby. They never touched on whether she is aware that the father of her child killed her brother.
Yeah, I don't know if that's even out there.
Never. I've paid much more attention to because it irked me in the first episode because like I know it's New Orleans, I know it's Louisiana where certain medical procedures are frowned upon, where your political leaders are looking to, punish women for getting certain right to life.
I think we know where you're going with it.
Healthcare. Okay. Yeah. But she seems completely 100% in love with this kid. And they don't ever acknowledge that he killed her brother.
Yeah.
So I'm still watching that. Also, earlier today on Netflix came out Beverly Hills Cop. Axel F. I felt like I was eating Wonder Bread while watching this. It was such light fare. Like the story is incredibly soft. And it's possible, and I'm going to say this, it's not as if I went back and watched the first movies, but they're really...
Oh boy.
That's going to be a clip. But so the story is that, like we moved forward in time or whatnot. They've brought back the whole crew, Judge Reinhold, the guy that played Taggart. They brought back Pierce Brosnan.
Pinchot.
Him too. So they brought back all these people. By the way, Bronson Pinchot, his accent, remember he had like a little accent in the first one?
Oh, he had a very heavy
first movie.
The first one.
But you watch the accent that he does in this one. It's like he's playing a different character. What was the other? Oh, here was my big complaint with it, is the fact that it felt like they spent way too much time and effort paying homages to the first two movies, where they would make a line that was like, oh, haha, he's going to take them to the strip club. Ah, I remember that scene. And then, there's another scene, like where, he walks in, he's like, oh, I'll talk my way into, where it literally felt like I had watched this movie before, where instead of like saying, all right, we're going to take this character, we're going to put him in a different situation, and we'll show how time's progressed. It was, let's give you what you are already comfortable, familiar with, that feels good. And we're just going to kind of we're going to take scenes from the previous movies, kind of twist them around a bit to make them like taking place today. But at the end of the day, we're not writing a new scene. I was disappointed by it. Yeah, I felt like there was a movie that we recently watched that came out that was also a sequel. It wasn't Coming to America. Maybe it was Coming to America. I don't know, but there was a movie recently where a sequel came out and it was just like very similar to this, where where it felt like it was more 50% paying, with the tradition of the previous movie rather than, okay, here's a different story.
You know what it was? It was Blondes in Bondage 9. You really felt that the script was copied. It was more just a piecemeal of 5, 6, and 7. So
if I remember correctly, in 9, they were using the same ball gags and the same restraints.
You picked up on that. I mean, maybe it was an Easter egg of some sort, but just shoddy writing regardless.
All right. What did you watch this week?
So I finally started getting into season 4 of The Boys on Amazon
Oh,
Prime, the
yes.
superhero show. Awesome. I think I just finished the 5th episode. I've got one more. I'll be completely caught up so far. They're only releasing them one a week, which I hate that they do, but what are you going to
Hate
do?
when they do that.
But just, I still over the top violence, over the top shock value, but still a good story. Like, still worth watching. I love it because it's so over the top. Just there are scenes in there that I know you'll enjoy because you like violence, you like
Sure.
man on man action. It's got a lot of that for you. So I would recommend The Boys season 4 for you.
Okay.
It's
All
just
right. Um,
trying to think if we
anything
watched anything
else?
else. There hasn't been a lot coming out that has looked that interesting. So there
Okay.
always seems to be this lull every few months where like there's definitely look like there's some great stuff coming out in August and September, but we're kind of in that holiday lull. Like the streaming services don't seem to like to release stuff around the holidays.
No,
Unless it's like
not at all.
Hallmark Channel and those Christmas movies that I know you love.
Have they started yet? Because I can't wait for the story of a white woman with brown hair who is in she's working on a farm country store when she's notified that the real estate mogul from the big city is going to buy up her family's farm and evict the family, and somehow she ends up falling in love with him in the end, and
You know,
he finds redemption.
I mean, that one's good. I like the one where the woman has to choose between, becoming CEO of the company that she's worked for the past 20 years or going to work the till at the general store in her small hometown so she can get back together with her high school boyfriend on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
That one was classic.
Or the one where she's raising like her sister's baby.
Yeah.
The daughter. The younger girl is like a precocious 6-year old. It's not hers, so we can still have this vision that Hallmark likes us to have, that these women are all virginal. So she's raising the child, but it's not hers. Her womb has yet to be inhabited by a child. Hallmark loves those stories too.
Yeah.
Garbage, just garbage.
Brian, I know you were, speaking of watching, you were transfixed on the downfall of Joe Biden over the
Ooh.
past week since
Yeah.
the presidential debate. I mean, everybody seemed to be hopping on your coattails. I mean, you were one of the first commentators out there, I think, to say that Joe
Yeah.
Biden might want to step down and allow another person to run. But that talking point certainly seemed to gain a little traction amongst some top
Sure.
Democrats over this past week.
You've got wealthy mega donors, not as if they have a lot of sway with the party, who are threatening to withhold support, financial support. Can you just pull back a little bit while you drink that water? Because
It's so hot. It's
you
so
may
hot. I
think
had to
I've
break out
forgiven.
the Stanley Cup again.
I have not forgiven you. By the way, and I think you can do this, and we'll see if anybody notices it. I think you can put your air conditioner back on in that office. And we have people watching right now. If the noise level is distracting, put it in the comments. Otherwise, I don't think you
Let me
need to
try.
sweat out.
Alexa, turn on office AC. That's right. I'm bougie. I have my air conditioning hooked up to my Alexa.
Not surprised. But you got mega donors who are not only withholding money from the Biden reelection campaign, but they are also threatening now that they will withhold financial support of any Democratic politician who does not come out requesting that Joe Biden step down as the Democratic nominee for the 2024 presidential election. You have congressmen. I believe there were 4 members of the New York State delegation to the House of Representatives that stepped forward, including, I want to say, Jerry Nadler.
Yes.
Maybe
I think you were
this
correct
was
in
in
that
today's news. all stepping forward and calling for Biden to step down. I know that the Biden campaign went into some, incredible twisting of some facts to make it seem as if he is qualified. There was talk that he was coming off of a cold. Some people said he hadn't been sleeping well. The very next day, there were reports that he stated that he needed to work less, that he was no longer going to be doing any kind of events after 8 p.m. and that he was going to be, what was the other
my
thing?
dream job.
He was, oh, that's hurtful. We do the show at 8 o'clock, you dick.
No, I'm just saying, this is the latest I'm up all week.
Yeah. And then there was also, he said that he was going to make sure that he got better sleep. He was going to be sleeping more. Because really, when you're going to be the leader of the free world for the next 4 years, what you really want as that candidate is someone who's going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to be working less so that I can sleep more. And also, if it's after 8 o'clock, I don't want to be bothered with it. We'll deal with it tomorrow. That is exactly the moment when you realize that his reelection campaign has absolutely self-imploded. They rushed forward a 2020 interview, I think, with George Stephanopoulos earlier this week. He got the Donald Trump face makeup right off the bat, which was just a tragic, I just felt as soon as I saw him sitting in that chair with that, with the skin color. And don't get me wrong, he looked ghastly white during the debate. He looked like he was, inching closer to death every second of that debate. But the fact that they immediately were like, oh no, hold on a second, let's put a lot of orange face makeup on, which is, which has been something they have derided Trump for probably 12 years at this point.
Yeah.
Just hypocrisy on the Democratic part. And once again, it is such an absolute, I don't even know the right word in terms of how I feel towards the Democratic Party right now, that while all of this is going on, they do not have a candidate that you could even properly consider as somebody who would be able to step in for him against Trump. Trump is a very formidable opponent. Regardless of the legal challenges that have come up that he has been found guilty of. There was the sexual assault case. There was the
financial fraud.
The financial fraud, all these things he was found guilty of. He was just recently found guilty of the finance campaign violations with Stormy Daniels.
Yep.
Ooh, I remember that one. With Stormy Philly. None of that has had any moving of the needle amongst the right. They don't care. Trump has that much of a stranglehold on 50% of this country. And for the Democrats to literally find themselves in a position where, they're sitting there, where the dialogue on their candidate is whether this man can take a dementia test and whether he'd be willing to do that is just, and they have nobody else to put in his place. If he were to announce tomorrow, on second thought, I'm too old. I'm going to do my one term, hand this over to somebody who, can do this for 4 years. They have nobody. Kamala Harris has not been prepared for that top role. They don't have Gavin Newsom from California. He's got some attention, but neither of those two are can beat Trump. It's tragic. It's tragic at where we find ourselves. Well, democracy is on the line here.
Democracy dies in darkness, Brian, like the Washington Post says.
What are your thoughts here, Ron?
Listen, I agree with you. We talked about it the other week. I don't think anyone on the Democratic side or, the left is excited about voting for Joe Biden again. But to your point, if he steps aside, who's going to step in that can carry enough states to win the presidency?
Nobody. That's where it's just so tragic.
Yeah.
tragic.
Switching gears in the world of retail, Target announced this week that they will no longer be accepting personal checks as a form of payment at its stores beginning later this month. They said they are stopping taking checks due to, quote, extremely low volumes of such payments. The change will go into effect on July 15th, following the end of Target's popular Circle Week sales event. Brian, your thoughts?
You know, my thoughts are on this. I mean, first off, I did not realize people were still paying with this method. But I will also say this. The younger generation will not understand the utter rage, the unbridled rage that you would be immediately awash in when the person right in front of you at the register waits for all their items to be rung up, to lean forward and to say, oh, 84.12, hold on. Then they open up their purse or handbag and come out with their personal checkbook. I'll pay by him because the rage, because it's credit card. You just swipe. We've reached that point in society where we're not even swiping cards anymore. We're tapping because the actual act of swiping your card is too much effort for this society. We need to just tap our credit cards. Not only that, but let's face it. Now you got the Apple Pay, the Google Pay, or whatever their version of it is. Now you just hold your phone. You just go fling, and then bing, and then next thing you know, you've paid for it. It's just wild that there are still people who are paying with checks. What are grannies going to do now, Ron?
I remember when I worked at Sears and someone would pay by check. And I remember the process, you'd have to write a little cross on the check. And then you take their driver's license and you'd write their driver's license number and you'd write their date of birth and you'd write the state their driver's license was from. And then you had a phone number that you had to call and plug in all the information. And to your point, it took 15 minutes when somebody was paying by check.
Yeah.
But the fact that people are still paying by check these days, especially the easiest way you can get your bank account information stolen these days is just by having a personal check out there somewhere.
Sure.
Think about check washing that goes on in various parts of the country. They don't even recommend in our area. Don't even drop a check in the mail unless you've taken it directly to the post office, because odds are that check's going to get stolen and kited.
Even in your neighborhood?
All neighborhoods, Brian, even in my neighborhood.
Wow, Philly has really gone to shit. Philly's gone to shit. What I was going to say was, listen, you know me. I love a social media video of a younger person beating the living daylights out of an elderly person. But, if this saves an elderly person from being assaulted at Target, I think this is a great policy.
Listen, and I get, you don't exactly get it because you carry around, I've seen those small gold bars that you carry around that you use when you pay. So, I mean,
first off, Ron, they're called shekels and they're gold coins.
Fair enough, my friend. Fair enough. I almost missed this story, Brian. This is the story that I meant to have as my my story of the week. A tragic story, and yet just one of those stories that you're like, what was this person thinking? So it was July 4th on Thursday, and people always say don't blow your hand off, don't lose a finger. So this gentleman right here, this is Alan Ray McGrew from South Carolina. He died on July 4th, Brian, when the firework he placed on his head exploded.
What?
So this is him earlier in the day. He is dressed up in an Uncle Sam suit. He is smoking.
He loves America.
He's doing a little jig. And so then he put a large lit firework on top of his Stars and Stripes hat. His wife said, quote, "I thought he was just showboating before he set it on the ground. I didn't realize that he had already lit it. The firework exploded and caused head injuries that likely killed McGrew immediately."
Which means that it had to be something pretty significant.
I mean, I can't even imagine if it's like, again, I mean, it had to be, an M80 or something very large.
Ron, is society, you're the champion of this podcast. Is society better off without him alive now?
Well, I don't know that I'd go that far, Brian, but I think if you are out there and you are placing explosives on your head, I think that's going to fall under natural selection.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this not one, Janelle Scayer, one less idiot around?
Yeah, I mean, it's, but apparently at least 4 people were killed in fireworks accidents this year, many more. But the head, but put it on your head. That's just, I don't know.
Once again, Janelle laughing, Janelle finding humor in human tragedy. Once again, very disappointing. Very
Let's
disappointing.
see, what else do we have here? Brian, throwback to Killer Mom, Susan Smith. Those of you who may not remember her, this was back in, 1994.
Yeah, it was around. I remember Clinton was president at the time.
She had let her car with 2 kids in it go into the lake, and so her kids drowned and died. And didn't she blame it on a black guy at first? Didn't she say she was carjacked?
She definitely blamed it on a black man. What she basically had happened, if I remember correctly, you tell me of how close to the story I am. And this is without any research, other than just the fact of my memory. So she was divorced. She had 2 kids. She had recently got into a relationship with another guy, except that he did not want to be raising her children. He wanted it to, he said that he would be interested in a relationship with her if it was just her, but since she had kids, he was not interested. So what she did was she called the police one day, freaking out, stating that a black male had carjacked her with her 2 kids in the back seat, and she was desperate to have her kids returned to her. National news, because back then the media loved a story where there was a white woman as the victim and a black man who was the criminal. This was like 7:02 on national news, like literally, like more important than what was going on in Congress. They were talking about Susan Smith. This was news for several days, and then finally the police cracked the case. I do not recall how they did it, but apparently
I think she eventually confessed to it. Like they kept finding holes in her story where it just didn't add up. And then they eventually just confessed to it. It was like a week and a half later.
So she basically, if I remember correctly, just decided that, she was more important to her to be in a relationship with this guy than to raise her 2 children. So she drove her car over to a local lake, set the car into drive, stepped out of it, and watched the car drive into the lake, submerge, sink, while her 2 children were strapped in the back seat. Quite possibly, I would say an act of pure evil, not even a bad person, but just pure evil. And she was sentenced to prison for a long time, if I'm not correct. She should be in prison for the rest of her life.
So she was given life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. So this November, her very first parole hearing for her life sentence is November 4th. And she feels very convinced that she could possibly be getting out. She apparently has been hard at work finding men willing to bankroll her life on the outside. She's now 52. This is a recent mugshot of hers. So she apparently, according to prison call recordings, has been engaging in a little phone sex to try and line up men to take care of her when she gets out. In a March conversation with one man, she asked him how she can support herself if she gets out. He told her that she has a large nest egg waiting for her if she's paroled, a combination of funds from the sale of family property, gifts from admirers, and money that she has saved up. Apparently she's got something in the $220,000 range. And then after the conversation about finances, it kind of devolves into kissing noises, him speculating what she'd look like in a wet t-shirt. I won't even skeeve you out a bit. But Smith has apparently carried on sexual and romantic conversations with at least a dozen men in the past 3 years. And as Ali said, all this could be avoided if the significant other just said, I'm not interested in dating a woman without kids, and you have kids. He could have said goodbye, but instead she decided.
But I don't know. I would say that more than it feels weird that we're blaming the significant other here rather than saying, and I know, Ron, you're going to turn this and twist this into me just trying to blame a woman, but I think it's a little bit more. You're on a stronger foundation here saying that this could have all been avoided if Susan Smith said, well, then I'm sorry that you're not interested in me and my 2 children. We're a package deal. Best of luck with your life. I find it seems odd that we're going back to blaming this guy that she had been dating with by stating that's where things, could have been avoided. Could have been avoided had she not sat there and drove her children into a lake.
I mean, all I'm going to say, Brian, is that mindset sounds very similar to a man who would talk a woman into drowning her 2 children. Now, her ex-husband, David Smith, who has since remarried and has welcomed 2 additional children, and his family plan to vehemently oppose her release. Like, I can't imagine she gets parole. Like, this is, I'm sorry,
Sure.
Like, she was spared the death penalty. I don't always agree with the death penalty, but I think in her case, it would have been warranted. This was a 3-year-old and a 14-month-old.
Truth.
But we shall see. We'll follow up on this story in November.
I'll also say this, and you can spin this however you want. She's a lot better looking now than she was when this happened. Remember, she had that bad frizzy hair with the glasses. That woman I could not understand wanting to be in a relationship with. But as a 50-year-old woman right here, I understand men sitting there saying, hey, I want to take care of you when you come out. I mean, let's face it, right off the bat, she's not bringing any children into the relationship, which is a bonus.
And on that note, we'll leave that story in the past. Brian, you have an Ask Ron story that you wanted to bring to the table. You will do this from time to time. You love advice columns online.
Love it.
You love them like
Absolutely.
they're your own children that you drowned in a lake. And so you will sometimes find a story that you want to find out what my thoughts are on it. Okay.
Yes. Whenever there is a Dear Abby, Dear Ann Landers, I always like to read them because I'd like to kind of get a sense of, what are the problems that other humans are having that make them sit there and reach out to an advice columnist. I like sitting there asking myself, is this even a real question? Or, has the person decided, has the writer decided to make up a question? I remember, back in the, the 90s or the 2000s, Maxim magazine had advice columns. And there was absolutely no way that those were ever legitimate questions. Those were always garbage. But this week we have a Dear Abby, but more importantly, this question is, Dear Ron. Here's your question, Ron. I would like to know how you would handle this. I met this man online a year and a half ago. We have been together ever since. There is a serious problem with him watching pornography. When we met, I knew he was doing it when I was not with him. He knows I'm not happy about it, but he tried for a while to keep it hidden from me. More recently, he would watch it and then want to come get cozy with me. When I tell him it's a complete turnoff for me, he gets upset and tells me that I need to see a therapist to get over it. I told him he should get help if he expects to have a relationship with any woman. I think he's obsessed with pornography. Am I overreacting? I'm beginning to feel like it is more important to him to watch porn than spend time with me. I do love him and very much want to be with him, but I can't seem to get over this. Help, please. And this is coming from Deal Breaker in Pennsylvania. Ron, how would you answer that person?
I think Brian, it's all about communication and common ground. I mean, it may be a turnoff for her, which is her right. So I think maybe him getting upset and telling her that she needs to see a therapist over it might be a little aggressive. But I think on the flip side of the coin is he could be maybe a little more open to her thinking and still watch porn, but maybe come to an agreement of when she's not around or whatever. I think there needs to be a middle ground here, Brian.
Interesting. Very interesting. Do you know what Abby's answer was?
I love the first sentence of her answer.
That was the moment where I said I needed to ask you this because it's so solid.
Right.
Dear Deal Breaker in Pennsylvania, I wish you had mentioned what kind of porn your boyfriend watches. Many men and women watch it because it helps them to become aroused. Some couples watch it together. Your boyfriend's suggestion that this should be discussed with a therapist was actually a good one. However, I'm suggesting that the two of you visit the therapist together. If you do, it may be educational and save your relationship. Wild answer. Absolutely wild. Because I do understand the idea of, hey, listen, some couples actually use this as a tool to find a common ground for intimacy between them. I think that's a very legitimate statement. But what I find really surprising about it from an advice column is that this woman has already stated that she's against the use of pornography when you're in relationships, and she wants to be in a relationship with somebody who's not watching pornography.
Right.
Why would the type of pornography make a difference?
If anything, it's probably just going to make it worse.
I'm sure. Like, this is not. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I wish you could have found out. Like, was he watching? Was it Pog? Was it MILF? Was it Stepsister? Was it Like, that's really going to help you, Abby. And
was it clothed male, naked female? That's another genre.
I just want to read the other Dear Abby question real quick, not to really analyze it, but just it's the weirdest thing. It says, my husband and I were invited via a group text to a cocktail party and we accepted. The host provides a name tag for guests as it is a mix of friends. When guests arrive, it is expected that they find their magnetic name tag and put it on.
Yes. Magnetic
name tag. Is there any doubt that this was a swinger party?
Ooh,
like, who else is doing magnetic?
Listen, you're in the suburbs
for a friend party.
I'm in my McIvory White Tower, or Whitey McIvory Tower. You're in the suburbs. We understand that the suburbs breeds swingers. It breeds couples who are having key parties, who are inviting other couples to their houses so they can swap partners in different areas of the room. That stuff doesn't happen in major metropolitan areas.
All right. Well, apparently what does happen in major metropolitan areas is Lyft drivers exposing themselves. A New Jersey woman taking a Lyft to work in Manhattan was traumatized when her driver allegedly whipped out his penis and urinated in a plastic container during the trip. The woman, identified in court papers as Jane Doe, says she called the Lyft just after 8 a.m. to get from her Fort Lee, New Jersey home to her job at Mount Sinai West in Midtown in March. The driver, quote, took his penis out of his pants and began urinating in a plastic container somewhere on a public road on the west side of Manhattan. It left her shocked and angry and caused lasting depression and other psychological and emotional distress. The lawsuit accuses the company of being negligent for hiring the driver, failing to protect riders from sexual predators, and failing to recognize signs that the driver was using his position to expose himself to passengers.
I'm about 8 minutes south of Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Listen, this is why you take Uber or Black Lane, one or the other. You stay away from Lyft.
What's the other site?
Black Lane. Black Lane. That's the black car
Black
service.
Lane. Okay,
Black
I'm
Lane.
sorry. Because I thought you said blacked, which is I know is your type of your favorite pornography you like to watch with the missus. Or we should save that for after dark. Speaking of which, however, hold on a second before we transition here. I will say this to you: there are certain areas where Lyft is much more predominantly used by drivers than Uber.
Okay.
I will say that if I'm in my Whitey McIvory Tower and I'm looking to get a ride to somewhere, I will use Lyft sometimes because you could sometimes it's cheaper by a couple dollars, but more importantly, a lot of times you can get a Lyft driver in 4 minutes while Uber maybe 12.
Well, and you use the request in the app for your driver to take his penis out.
Well, of course.
You've mentioned that that's why you enjoy Lyft.
Listen, what is the worst thing that can happen other than actual sexual assault when you are using a Lyft or an Uber is that your driver says, hold on a second, I need to stop off over at that Starbucks and use their restroom while you're sitting there in the back seat waiting to get to your destination. I mean, when nature calls, especially as you're, a man who is, past the age of 45, when nature calls, you must heed that, warning from your body. You don't have 20 minutes to hold it in. So if your body is saying you need to go to the bathroom, I would be happier with my Lyft driver exposing his penis and urinating into a plastic bottle than if he were to say to me, hey, I'm going to stop off at that Dunkin' Donuts and use their bathroom while I sit there watching minute after minute go by. No.
Listen, if you can't get enough of these kind of thoughts from Brian, that's why we have After Dark as part of our Patreon membership. If you go to ronandbrianpodcast.com, click in the upper right-hand corner. If you join at the $10 a month level or higher, you get to join After Dark, which is going to start about 23 minutes from now. We are doing our pajama party tonight, which means we let our Patreon subscribers come on live with us on the Patreon. And tonight it is Can You Beat Brian? I got to say, I feel like I've put together one humdinger of a trivia contest. Brian was not able to defend himself in the last Can You Beat Brian?
No.
So we're going to see if he can redeem himself. But this trivia contest tonight, little slice of brilliance, if I do say so myself.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. But it's always important. Listen, that you still have time to join our Patreon.
Oh yeah.
It is a great way to help, support the show. A lot of times people will sit there, when we're out in public and doing meet and greets and whatnot, people pat, great show. How can I help out? Here's $20. Listen, we're not looking for handouts here.
No.
It is this is the way to help, the show. This is a way of sitting there saying, I want to support the show. Why? We don't want your handout, but we will take your monetary contributions if you sign up for Patreon. Why? Because you're getting extra content every week.
It's an exchange. It's a fair exchange.
You're getting a minimum of 30 minutes of extra material recorded right after we do this podcast live on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. We continue behind the paywall on Patreon. We do a 30-minute show where we talk about subjects that YouTube does not want to cover. It will block our show. We will get demonetized over on Facebook with the type of content that we are discussing there. That's why it's behind the paywall. And what are you getting for that? You're getting your money's worth. For as little as $5 a month, you can support this show, get audio versions of that After Dark episode for just as little as $10 a month. The price of supporting a starving child in Africa, according to Sally Struthers. You can instead support Ron and Brian podcast by joining our Patreon, and you get a link every week to watch the After Dark performed live. And once a month, and this is what's happening later tonight, we're doing our pajama party. Our Patreons are invited onto the show. We do a game once a month. Can you beat Ron? The next month, can you beat Brian? Ron does a lot better than I do, but that's why he's our champ.
All right. Listen, I can't give a better recap than you did just then. So we are going to go get ready for the pajama party. Brian is going to start breaking into a light sweat as he prepares for Can You Beat Brian? So for all of our Patreon subscribers, we will see you shortly. Everybody else, we appreciate you joining us this week. Brian, anything else before I take us out of here?
I love you, sir, and I love everybody watching the show, whether you are watching it live in the chat right now, whether you are streaming it on YouTube or Facebook after the fact, whether you are listening to the audio version. We appreciate that you are setting time out of your busy schedule to spend with Ron and I.
All right. Love you too, my friend. Love all that have joined us. We will catch you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com. See you again.